again. I'd like to introduce Troy Beauregard, who's a friend of mine who started a supplements company not that long ago. Changed with the times with the COVID changes, and instead of having so much of a storefront type business, he's created an online business. In week 4, I did a supplement talk with you guys, but it was very sciencey and very purpose-based. Today, what I wanted to do with Troy on board, because he has a lot more experience with supplements than I do. I only have a very narrow focus in terms of what I've used and, you know, the genre of athletes that I've worked with. So we've got, I think, about 10 questions. Abby, you're on. So if you want to ask any questions over and above what I've been given, please feel free. So Troy, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Super excited to get to speak to everyone about what we're doing. So
tell me a bit about how this came to be.
So I've been involved. I've been a strength and conditioning coach, of course, you know, Kim, for well over 20 years. And being 45, we start to see a little bit of a light kind of at the end of a tunnel.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, the body still works, but there's a lot of mileage on the engine kind of thing. So
yep.
Can't put the same hours in that I used to effectively. So my wife and I, since COVID, we kind of had talks about, hey, what are we going to do like post coaching, you know? I don't know. There's not like an end date, of course, yet, but we have to start thinking of certain things, right? And she has a very successful online clothing company. So she did everything run through Facebook groups, like not even really much of a website, but everything just ran through groups. And of course, as everyone started to shop more and more, and we just seen how dynamic that was, we were like, hey, well, what can I do to kind of add to that in case the gym does get shut down again? Or, you know, I'm lucky enough to work with some of the athletes that I do, so I can kind of work with them. But what happens if I can't work with the masses? Like, what's going to happen? What's the end game? So we kind of came through with Sudbury Supplements and said, well, let's take this, what she does so well with her groups and what she does, and just flip it to something that I've got tons of experience with.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it was brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and so, it's just, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, you know, we've got a tiny kind of little bit of a show piece, I guess, inside of Inspired, amazing sports training facility owned by Mitch Gagno. Great to work with someone and have ownership like him that totally knows. I mean, he's known for his gas tank. So for someone, right? So someone that knows, you know, being a UFC fighter as long as he has been, you know, for 10 years, most people don't last that long in the sport. So to work with someone like him, and he's such a great guy too, it was just a perfect fit at the right time.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so we've got some questions. I'm not putting you on the hook. I'm actually looking for your experience and your expertise and your opinions purposely. Not, I did the science fact stuff. I actually want your information.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question was about their body types. So they're long, they're lean. They're not, their center of gravity is high, not like a, you know, hockey player, which is low. They have no butts. They have no calves. You know what I mean? So in terms of that, they've got really fast metabolisms. So have you found successful fuel in a supplement to keep their engines running?
So first and foremost, it's to see, like, that's a depends question. And what I mean by that, it depends on nutritionally what they're already doing. So the best way I've been able to explain it is that a supplement is there to supplement either something missing from the diet or something you can't get from your diet, right?
Right.
We have to, typically I'll sit with someone one-on-one, whether it's just an average everyday consumer or of course with an athlete. And we have to see, number one, what they're eating. So like carbohydrate wise is very, very valuable to somebody in team sports like basketball. But again, if they're not eating enough, then fat can also be a very good energy source as well. But I feel that carbohydrates is going to be someone's number one in most team sports, just because of the nature of the sport and the body's preferred energy system when it comes to that. So we want to make sure, number one, if they are eating enough or coming close to that, and then we can supplement the rest with stuff like from Allmax. They have a great product called Carb Ion that has carbohydrates based in it, and they're not just junk carbs, it's actually good carbs. not just plain sugar. Anybody can do that, you know. And then they have added electrolytes as well, which most athletes do not consume nearly enough sodium. That's always been my thing. For those that are listening, grab a pinch of salt, throw it in your water, and you tell me how you feel after. So
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of that. We even have a triathlete that I worked with for some time, where his pre-workout was probably the grossest tasting water ever, just with tons of salt, because we know that they're going to use it. Yeah, I know. It's so, but he's like an animal. So, but I get to basketball though. I feel that making sure that to not allow yourself to deplete is going to be one of your best strategies when it comes to that. So that comes with loading over time as well. So if you're practicing in the morning, going for a run, that kind of stuff, we have to think of nutritional strategies to go from morning to night or between training sessions as well. So that's when macro and micro timing comes really, really handy. So if somebody is doing 2-a-days, which most athletes are going to be doing, so it's practice in the morning or training at night or vice versa, whatever that case is. So we want to make sure that you're not allowing yourself to just have this constant state of depletion. So at the end of the week, you just feel like you're totally tanking. So if you can keep adding carbohydrates back into the mix, so either like peri-nutrition where you're taking it in during training, or after with some electrolytes like in Carbion, then we can really start that process all over again and not allow you to get totally depleted.
Awesome. Okay, so what have you noticed as the best recovery supplement? Like, are you a protein guy, branched chain amino acid guy, a food guy?
So they all have their piece. So when we think about nutrition, especially sports nutrition, I feel that there's so much misinformation out there. It's disgusting. Like, it really kind of grosses me out a little bit, where you go into a supplement store and someone's just going to read you the label. Like, most of us can thankfully read, but we don't need someone to read the label for us. I think we need people that can dive deeper into that information. So it's really, really valuable to just, when you are shopping for whatever you're looking for recovery, is number one is going to be, first, what does my sleep look like? Then what is my nutrition going to look like? What is my hydration going to look like? What is my training? Am I resting enough between sessions? Do I have enough calories between those sessions? And then if we can kind of have all of those questions sort of answered, then we can get to the supplements. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that being said, food 100%, that's going to be like one of your first ones. But again, being an athlete, it's very, very tough, especially with some athletes in basketball that are so tall, have such a high metabolism, where you're eating 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day and still losing weight. So very, very hard. You're typically going to not eat the cleanest, and that's okay, because calories are king or queen when it comes to sport first. That's why there's a McDonald's at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So legit, it's a thing. So
that's funny.
So I mean, yeah, McDonald's throws millions, but some of these guys and girls need calories. We have some athletes that have to eat over 8,000 to 10,000 calories a day. You're not going to get that with vegetables, right? So when it comes to recovery, if your food is on check and you are eating enough, so when it comes to your protein, carbohydrates, and fats, especially fats, when you are trying to eat a ton of calories, are really, really valuable, because you're going to get double your price per gram. So very, very valuable that way. So if all that's in check, I would want to make sure that you are getting sodium, potassium, carbs, of course, really, really valuable. And then I would get some branched chain amino acids. I'm not totally bought into the belief of the essential amino acids, because I personally feel that if you're eating 200 plus grams of protein a day, that I feel that you're getting enough of those EAAs. But I feel you need a bit more when it comes to the branched chain amino acids, and for one particular superstar there called leucine. So what leucine does is trigger muscle protein synthesis. So that's our body's use of protein to kind of change how our bodies are going to react to it. So it's going to use more of it if we're getting enough leucine per sitting. So branched chain amino acids do a great job of that. So what I do personally for myself, for my athletes, if they're having a shake right after, then having a meal, I would get them to sip their branched chain amino acids with their meal to make sure that they are having leucine, to kind of top them up when it comes to their protein levels, because some foods don't have the same amino profile. So that's like the quality of protein. And many foods don't have the same quality of protein, I should say, that say like a whey protein or a casein protein will have. So we kind of use that branched chain amino acid to sort of level up the playing field, so to speak. And we can see that in some research that even when protein is a little bit less, if someone does add a little bit more leucine into their diet, per sittings, like per bolus amount, that they'll be able to get a little bit more. It's like they're eating more protein because of the extra leucine.
Perfect. Okay, so what is your fave? Like, what would be if you were, and it doesn't matter what genre of supplement, but what's your go-to if you just had to generalize, even something you use for yourself? What's the one that does the most of what you want it to do, like the most effective one?
So so if I had to really just pick one, that's a tough one, but because it would depend on what you're doing, right? But if I'm thinking just for workouts, I love Impact Pump. So it's a non-stim product that's a pre-workout, but it has a really cool product, or it has a really cool supplement in there called glycerol. So what that does, especially for athletes, it's going to help you hyperhydrate your cells. So you're not going to dehydrate the same as you would, or as quick as you would if you didn't have it. So as an athlete, if I had to like pick one, like that whole proverbial like gun to your head, what are you going to do kind of thing, I would think Pump would be definitely really, really high up on that list.
Okay, good, because that's not one I spoke about when we did supplements. So that's really good. I like that. What's a good energy supplement? So these kids aren't adults, we'll say.
Yeah.
And I know coffee's become quite a fad in the gym. But aside from that, so maybe a non-stimulant one, what's a good one if these guys are, world's different, world's changing. So is there a safe but still very effective energy supplement?
Yeah, like that one I just mentioned, Pump. So that Impact Pump is a great choice because it's not stim. And I think it's really valuable. So when it comes to stim, everybody, it's not where some people are going to have this tons of caffeine, and there's other stimulants out there that are going to act much like caffeine, but you can't think the same. You're going to have the jitters. So whether you're playing, basketball or hockey, whatever the case is, you need your hands. So, and if you have the jitters, it's not going to be the same, right? So a little bit of caffeine, that's fine. But especially when you're younger, we don't know the long-term effects of caffeine use when it comes to younger athletes. So being a teenage and younger. And it's unfortunate that many energy drink companies are directing their marketing right towards young males, typically when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? So, but Impact Pump is a great one. Complex 5 from Rivalus is another amazing product. I love what Rivalus does. Same thing with BioSteel, or I'm a huge fan. I'm wearing that. But BioSteel is great as well. It's not going to be to the same effect that some of what the other ones are going to have, but they're when it comes to what they put in, I love what they do and how they market, because they're not looking to get into that sort of like monster sort of stream of things, right?
Yeah. And that's better for athletes because it's, you need something like you said, something they can control the results and the reactions to, right? Because otherwise, you're right. When they're playing, if all of a sudden they're doing this on the bench, it's going to be really tough for them to dribble or even get their head focused.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty out there. So there's another really good supplement from Rivalus called Ignition. They have tons in there. Most of what's in there is going to help with cognitive function. So just to get you to kind of think more clearly, to keep you calm. There is some stim in there, so I'd wait till they're a little bit older to give that to someone under 8. Yeah. But if something that doesn't have stim in there, because you already have the jitters, you already got game data, you should be so amped to go that you should have to have something to kind of keep you even keel, not jack you up.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, so what are your thoughts? I mean, I know the basics, obviously, between casein and whey, but do they do the same thing? Do they have the same result? Do you like one versus the other?
So that's, again, depends. So what I mean by that, casein gets it's kind of like the middle child who doesn't get a lot of attention, and it should.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that it has a very underutilized amino profile, where for some things it's very, very good, but then also in some things they shine way too bright a light on it. So number one, we want to make sure people are eating enough protein per sitting and enough protein per day. So that's kind of like step one. So then that's kind of where we would see where we can really benefit from that. The cool thing about casein is that it takes a little longer than twice the amount of length than whey protein does for that amino profile to get back to baseline levels. So that can be really valuable for people that say are not consuming enough, and we can kind of have some branched-chain amino acids in there as well to help bump them up a little bit. So there's sometimes casein can be super, super valuable, and sometimes whey protein, that window of opportunity that people, like so many bros like to talk about, isn't quite as valuable as what we thought it to be, but it's still very valuable, especially to athletes, because we have to make sure you're eating enough calories. So there's certain times that will get more advantage, but it's so slight that it's not to what we used to think. So before, it'd literally be, if I didn't finish a shake, the moment I finished a workout, that's it, that workout was for nothing. Like so many like old dudes would tell me that, and I'm like, hey, huge, so I want to be like him. So yeah. But instead we know that it's more so it's per sitting to make sure you're getting enough, and then per day to make sure you're getting enough. And when it comes to casein, again, it can be really valuable throughout the day, especially if you're not going to be eating enough. And for some people that are looking for like an awesome treat, it sounds super weird, but casein with a little bit of water and you mix it up, you make some crazy good pudding. So, because if you were to take the same casein, so if I took these two shakers and I had one with whey and one with casein, I put the exact same amount of water and I shook it. Well, because of the type of bonds that are remaining in the whey protein, it's going to still look very, very watery and still have like almost like this kind of texture with a little bit of different texture to it. But the casein, if I put the same thing, if I put 6 ounces of water in there, it'll instantly, boom, turn to mush. And the reason for that is because typically most whey, especially whey isolate proteins, they're going to have a couple of different enzymes, like in Isoflex. With Allmax, I love their products. I used it before I even started Subry supplements. There's a couple of different enzymes to help you better use that, and some people have a hard time consuming some of the products. So when it comes to whey protein, I like using like the whey isolate because there's a lot less stuff in there. It's basically 85 to greater % of per serving of protein. And with casein, if you have a hard time with milk, I really wouldn't lean towards casein, because it's literally like the old nursery rhyme of Little Miss Muffet sat on top of eating her curds and whey. Yeah. Well, curd casein. So things like cottage cheese and that kind of stuff, that's more casein content.
Oh, okay. Very cool. I'm an Allmax girl too. So the physiological profile that I built for the basketball players a couple weeks ago, before I talked about concussions, tried to teach them the components. So the fact that they're anaerobic, but they still have to be aerobic in order to recover. Do you have any, any supplements or any suggestions on how to train both pieces of it successfully with minimal injury?
So, yeah, I would think if that's the case, especially when it comes to injury and basketball players, because of the height and the distribution of weight is very, very different than most other athletes. Yeah. I deal primarily with hockey players and combat sport athletes. So MMA, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, hockey players, that's basically who I spend literally 90% of my day with. With basketball, I feel super strongly that I think they should be taking collagen to make sure that so they can have just better, healthier joints over time. Everybody that's much younger, if you were to start to take collagen very, very early, you would notice it not now, maybe not if you started taking, you'd say, okay, I don't feel this doing any different. But when you're a 45-year-old ex-powerlifter that would, deadlift an Impala, trust me, I feel my knees and my hands now, and wish somebody would have told me the cool stuff about collagen. But yeah. I think that would be one supplement for a basketball player that's kind of really like under the radar and people should be taking. And quite honestly, I believe in it so much, it's literally one of my best sellers to almost everybody.
I give it to quite a few of my patients, actually. And I like the All Max one as well. So, yeah, I agree with you there. Thoughts? So I didn't talk a lot about the glutamine and the creatines and some of the, I don't want to say more controversial, but the ones that you'd see like my day and your day in the gym where they would just take the teaspoon of it and chuck it to the back of the mouth. But I think the boys should know a little bit more about the two of them, and I'm sure they're going to see it and kind of what it's used for.
Sure. So creatine is literally the most researched supplement in human history. You can look up now and I can find hundreds of thousands of studies on PubMed and other research sites like Scholar, like Google Scholar and that kind of stuff. Like there's literally thousands every single year that get published. And for different reasons, we're coming up with some really cool research now, not we, but as in like the community of sports nutrition is coming up with some really cool stuff when it comes to creatine. I really feel it's one of the few supplements that people that are younger could and should be taking because there's a lot of value to it. But just like anything, for some it'll work great, for some not a heck of a lot. If you are eating a ton of red meat, you might not get anything from it. If you're not eating very much red meat, then you'll probably see a dramatic effect from it. Not just when it comes to performance, but we're also seeing some cool stuff for the brain when it comes to creatine as well. So stuff like towards concussions, I should say, and that kind of stuff, we're starting to see some weird kind of studies that way. And also for when it comes to cognitive function as well in older adults. But if we're focusing on kids, I really think that I'm not getting it too much into the loading phases of creatine, because we can just do that over time. I'm a pretty big believer in there, unless there's an event coming up where you should be loading and you need that full function of creatine. Okay. But just over time, take 3 to 5 grams a day of creatine, and you can really see some great benefit from that as well. When it comes to glutamine, we see great value for gut health, and it's one of the most potent energy sources, I should say, for your gut. So if you are having issues when it comes to the gut, I'm not a pharmacist, but I think that if you do have those issues and you want to start with something different, glutamine would probably be a great choice. It will help you recover because it may, again, in quotes, it may help you get more out of the food because you'll just be in better gut health as well.
Perfect. Yep. And actually, I put my concussion patients on creatine, and nice. I agree with the glutamine 100%. Now, some of my younger guys that are going to be listening to this podcast are your typical really string bean kind of guys. And I'm sure they're going to be wondering about the weight gain world and the weight gain proteins and stuff. Do they work? Are they healthy? What are your thoughts?
Some are, just like anything, some are, some aren't. When it comes to those, stuff like Clean Gainer from Rivalus is really good. Not many are going to be a very clean source of food, but the caveat there is what's going to matter right now, more calories, or is it going to be that quality of food? For someone trying to put on weight, like I was the little guy growing up, I was 125 pounds. But then I just kept eating like a monster. I mean, if you really want to put on weight, no joke, guys, if that's your goal right now, I'll talk to you one-on-one about that kind of stuff. But legit, if you are not adding weight, you're not eating enough, and you're not eating anywhere near enough, period. That's the end game there. When you're in your early teens to mid-teens, that's fair game. If you're smaller, like I was 5'9", 125 pounds. Then senior year, basically the way I am now, about 215. So, but yeah, Dutch genetics were huge. I didn't get the height, but I got, I was kind of late everything else. But again, eating, if you really want to put on weight, it's going to be number one, if you're not getting enough protein. And we've seen really cool study really recently by someone who I look up to, Jose Antonio. Research, he's amazing. He did a 2-year study where they took people and took 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So I'm like about 95 kilos. So we're looking nearly 300 grams of protein a day. And they did that consistently for 2 years. And there was no adverse effect whatsoever to the kidneys at all. So make sure, number one, you want to eat enough protein, but don't dedicate a ton of your daily allotment of calories towards protein, because you're going to need some stuff for energy so you can be in that quote unquote anabolic state when it comes to carbohydrates. And also fats, very, very important for your hormone profile. You guys are, it's not a big deal when you're really, really young, but let's not make it a big deal by not eating enough fats so you can keep those hormones that react well with fat. If you're not eating enough of them, you're not going to get the most benefit out of your food and training.
Awesome. Have you come across any family of supplement that just doesn't do what it says it does, or it's maybe false advertising or something that the kids should stay far away from?
Yeah, like marketing ruins everything. Like literally, guys, when it comes to supplements, when someone says, okay, in a study, this raised someone's testosterone by 50%. Or, hey, so I firmly believe testosterone boosters do next to nothing. A few years ago, I'm going to say about 3-ish years, maybe 4 years ago, my testosterone was super duper low, and literally to the point where they were going to put me on replacement therapy, so TRT. And I never wanted to go that route. It's never been my thing. So I wanted to do what I could. So I started to kind of research as much as I can, but I think testosterone boosters are pretty much a crock if you could just eat enough, train hard enough, rest well enough. Yeah. Those are going to be some major, major factors. So test boosters aren't really going to do it, like pro hormones, that kind of stuff, literally nothing. Because what they're going to do is, yeah, it's going to raise your testosterone, but the body loves balance and doesn't care what it has to do to get it. So if your testosterone goes up, well, many of these boosts, so-called, we'll call testosterone boosters, are going to also raise other hormones as well. And we're going to even out that balance. So it's literally, you've just spent a lot of money to have a null effect.
Yeah, very true. So that's all I've got for questions. So if anybody, I have a lot of faith in Troy, and which is the reason I asked him to come and give a almost identical information, which is good, but from a much different world of expertise. I haven't taken a lot of this stuff, but we're kind of in the same age category, Kyle, in the sense that we're respecting things a lot more and their purposes and obviously the science behind them than we may have 25 years ago. But it's allowed us to teach you guys stuff that nobody taught us way back then. So please, so everybody that gets to listen to this podcast, I'm going to have Troy give you his work spiel so you guys know how to get a hold of him. If you're seeing him, he will meet with you. He'll do his consultations. You guys know what your goals are. We've gone through them. They can be personal ones. He will only tell us what we need to know. So you guys can feel free to speak with him on whatever issues you're having. And he will get you guys on the right track for supplements. Like I said, I trust him. So please feel free to reach out to him. And Troy's going to tell us how to do that.
Yeah, pretty much on any platform. So Facebook, Instagram, Sudbury Supplements, SudburySupplements.com. There's a little link on the bottom of the webpage. If you want to just talk to me through there, you can just kind of chat with me there. Like Kim said, I'll help you set, and it doesn't cost you anything, guys. I'm not about that. When it comes to making sure you're getting the right things for you, that's what matters to me. I'm not going to read you a label. I figure that most people can do that. If you can't, and I can help you do that. But all jokes aside, guys, there's going to be many, many people out there that are going to twist studies around and kind of make it sound like it sounds really, really good. We can talk in depth about that kind of stuff, because I think that's really a huge fallacy. Some people shouldn't have access to the internet, but you can reach me at SudburySupplements.com, SudburySupplements at gmail.com for my email as well. So pretty much anyway, I'll be happy to help, guys. Make sure that you're getting the right information. Set you up with whatever you need when it comes to that information. And if you decide to buy from me, great. If not, I just want you to get the right information in your hands.
And that's a key piece, everybody. You can walk into anywhere. It could be a health food store, it could be a supplement store. And I don't mean any disrespect to coaches or parents, but unless they're in that field, they're going by their beliefs. They're going by what they may have been taught decades ago. You're listening to two people who are in their 40s and are still in this field and research this stuff, you know, on a, let's say, daily, weekly, monthly, you know, scale. And we make sure that the information is correct. And it's really, really important. Even some of your personalities be like, I don't need them. I know what I'm doing. My friend so-and-so is on this. It's really important as an athlete and one of our athletes that you guys are going down the right path, that you've got all the information and you've got the, you know, the education piece to make that decision with your parents. And you can bring your parents and they can ask Troy whatever questions they have. But it's very, very important that you don't do supplements on your own. So Thank you, Troy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys.
Yes, this was a learning curve even for me. So again, guys, SudburySupplements.com. He's a friend of mine. I trust him dearly. And if you guys have any questions or friends, direct them towards Troy, because I have no doubt he'll put you guys on the right course of food, nutrition, sleep, supplements, which were weeks that we've all covered throughout the last 13 weeks. So that's perfect. And everything mingles. Everything's interconnected when it comes to form, function, especially as an athlete. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Troy. I'm sure we'll chat again soon. Have a good night, everybody.